Hi, it's Nick Shell again with Family Friendly Daddy Blog. Of course, my mother's special guest host. Don't you just love talking about MyHeritage DNA test? Aren't you just obsessed? There are people in the world who could care less about it. They just shrug it off. Who cares? I'm definitely not paying money to find this out. Meanwhile, I've paid money. My mom's paid money. We're paying money to find this stuff out. This is fascinating stuff. Never in the history of the world could you know the details of this stuff until now. Let's take advantage. Let's learn and let's celebrate it. All right, so with that being said, you know the story. My mom's whole life, age 59 now, was led to believe, obviously, she's half Mexican and half Italian. The half Mexican side checks out according to the test. The Italian does not. In fact, 4.5% Italian, despite having a grandfather who moved here from America, from Italy to America over 100 years ago with a, what was his name again?
Giuseppe Metello.
Okay. And only spoke Italian, and even when he died in 1983, he barely spoke English, right?
Yes.
Because he spoke Italian.
Broken. Yes.
And that was the only language he really spoke. I mean,
yes.
that was... So why would he not be Italian? Why would my mom not be Italian? But yet, my test showed 0% Italian, and then my mom's only shows 4.5%. You know, if you think that you're half Italian your whole life, and you get this, you maybe think, okay, well, maybe it won't show 50, maybe it'll show 35 or 40 or something like that, right?
That's what I was thinking. Yeah. I was thinking, oh, probably, 40, at least 40%. Yeah.
But you actually showed up twice as much Greek. You're like 7.8% Greek. Yes. And so, and we can accept this now because we've researched it and we've looked at the history. We've looked at the trends and how things happen over in the Middle East and Europe and Africa. We can understand this better. But here's what's interesting. So, again, it checked out that my mom's half Mexican, which is roughly 33% Mayan Aztec and then 22% Iberian, which is Spanish Portuguese. That checks out. That's about half. But to only be 4.5% Italian and then to be 7.8% Greek, really what showed up the most on her Italian grandfather's or Italian grandparents' side, because they both were supposedly Italian.
Yes, and born in Italy.
Both born in Italy, but then got married in America in what year?
1919.
1919. Okay. So over 100 years ago, they got married. They both immigrated from Italy to here, got married in America, and were Italian. That's always what we've been told, we've known, we've seen the pictures of, and the names match up. It looks like. Of course, your grandmother's last name was Veit.
Yes.
When you Google Veit, it shows up with Vitali, which shows up as a Sephardic Jewish name. So it can, and it's also traced back to Italy as well. So somewhere there were Jewish people who traveled through Spain, Italy, and then the name Vitali, and then for her grandmother got shortened to Veit. Okay, so that's a Sephardic Jewish name. But so just to put this in perspective, how much Jewish? Showing up 15.2% Jewish. But then showing up 14% Middle Eastern, which could be from any of the following countries: Yemen, Oman, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Iran, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, Jordan, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Turkey, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Cyprus, Palestine, and Georgia. It can be any of those Middle Eastern countries, and that's 14%. You're almost equal parts Jewish and Middle Eastern, which add those together, that's nearly a third. That's over a quarter of you is, and some people say, well, Jewish people are actually Middle Eastern to begin with, which I can easily understand that. So if you want to say that, you're nearly a third Middle Eastern, which in theory means that both of those Spanish grandparents were Middle Eastern more than anything. But if we want to narrow it down, I think what we can come up with is your grandmother, Maria Veit, was the Sephardic Jew, and Giuseppe Metello was actually more Middle Eastern than anything. He had the name Metello as the placeholder, so at some point there was an Italian in there, but it's like Middle Eastern people were marrying into that family, and the name stuck, and the language stuck, and the culture stuck, but ultimately mainly Middle Eastern blood. And he marries a Jewish lady who's got maybe a little bit of Italian in her as well, but a Jewish person and a Middle Eastern person largely marry each other in America after they move here, and all we ever known is they're Italian.
That's right.
So that's the theory. I mean, is that how you've kind of...
Yes, that's all I ever heard. That's all I ever heard. I even talked to one of my aunts probably about 5 years ago about our Italian grandmother, asking if there was Jewish blood, and she said, "Oh no, she was Italian. She was full-blooded Italian." And so that's the way the family believes. That's up until now.
Yeah, and it's
up
funny,
until now.
we were talking too, like my grandfather, which is Alberto Vittorio Metello. I mean, it's so Italian, but it's funny because like growing up, going to his house, the only kind of bread he ever had, Jewish rye. He never ate any other kind of bread. You want to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich at his house? Jewish rye bread. That's all he ever had. And so I didn't think much of it, but maybe as a kid subconsciously I thought, oh, well, we're Jewish. I don't know. I never really thought about it till I got maybe closer to teenage years what we actually were. But my version of growing up a quarter Italian and your version growing up half Italian, maybe it was more of a little bit of a Jewish Middle Eastern mix, courtesy of Italy than anything. So when we look at things are Italian, it's based on our version of what it is. Maybe it's not so Italian after all. And in fact, I want to close with this point. More than one person has commented on our videos saying that we don't have Italian noses. There's a certain name for it, what that nose is. So I just want to, yeah, we're turning sideways. Actually, we'll take turns zooming up to the camera here in a minute. But my nose, of course, I'm only in theory a quarter of that side, but my nose is sort of more straight like this. And I think, and I'm gonna have you step a little bit closer so that you can, yeah, there you go. But you can, yeah, you see that? It's like, that's not the Italian nose. Okay, that's good. The Italian nose, from what I'm understanding based on people saying, is it kind of comes down a little bit more this way, like hook or something like that. But you look at our nose, it's not that way. Like, granted, we don't have like a small nose, like more someone who would be more, I don't know, more European American-ish looking. I mean, you can look at us and tell we're descending from somewhere beyond Europe. You can tell that. But as far as having an Italian nose, not so much. And not really even a Jewish nose either. But it's something. And I think maybe if you mix those things together, because there's Greek in there too. So mix in Middle Eastern, mix in Italian, mix in Jewish, and there's where it is. It's hard to, but people have been commenting, trying to figure out what we are based on our nose.
We were always proud of our noses too, especially on the Italian side. I thought I took after the Italian side. I did take after my dad's side of the family. You know, I look like my mom, but you know, I took after my Italian side. And they were proud of their Italian snozzles. Oh, that was just proud. Oh yeah, he's got the Italian snozzle.
But I think it's, again, based on their perception of what Italian was. Yes. They all had a similar nose, and that's an Italian nose because it's a prominent nose. But if it's not the right shape, it's probably more descendant of some other part of the world or just that mix of those things. But we have, I think, a similar nose, and maybe it's not an Italian nose after all. But we can let them be the judge because they know, these people watching these videos know more than we do about all these things. So I love learning. I couldn't make this video if it weren't for the comments I've been reading about our noses that are not Italian.
Yes, thank you. It's good to know.
All right.
We appreciate it.
Well, you keep leaving comments, and I guess we'll keep making videos because we're just as fascinated as you are.